Last week we did some descriptive statistics on the fire response dataset. This week we're going to do a little bit more advanced statistics, and this time it's going to be on the training dataset located in Blackboard. So when you go to Blackboard and the Datasets and Codebooks tab, you want to scroll down to the bottom where I've uploaded the training data and the training data codebook. Go ahead and upload the training data, and it should look like this in SPSS. It may take a bit of time because it is over 60,000 observations. We have 6 columns for 6 variables. Also pull up the training data codebook, and that will tell you how all of these variables are coded. In the codebook, you will see the variable names, their labels as they match in SPSS. Alarm date time is a unique emergency. It's the date and time of a particular emergency. Turnout time is the time in seconds from the fire station receiving an emergency dispatch to leaving the fire station. Response time is the total response time, meaning the time from when the fire personnel receive an emergency dispatch until they arrive on scene at the emergency. This variable, along with the turnout time variable, is measured, or both are measured in seconds. Station ID is the fire station number. Chief station is a variable that lets us know if a battalion chief is located at that station, essentially a supervisor. So it's coded 1 if the battalion chief is at the fire station and 0 if not. And then the variable of interest that we have is training completed. In 2015, we worked with the El Paso Fire Department on a training module to decrease turnout and response times. So for each emergency, we code whether or not the unit responding to that emergency had undergone the training or not. So if you see a 1 under the training completed, then yes, that unit responding had finished the training module. If you see a 0, then that unit responding had not undergone training. If you scroll down quite a ways, because the trainings I believe started in March and April, you will see, for example, case number 25,150 on my computer. That particular emergency occurred on April 13th, 2015 at 4:31 p.m. The turnout time was 49 seconds. The total response time was 380 seconds. The station responding, the unit came from Fire Station 20. Station did not have a chief there. That's coded 0 under chief station. And the unit responding under training completed has a 0, meaning they had not undergone the training. Right below it is an emergency from Fire Station 31. They responded on the same day, a few minutes later at 4:33 p.m. Turnout time was 35 seconds, total response time 174 seconds. No chief located at that station, but the unit responding, yes, they had undergone training. Last week when we did basic descriptive statistics, the process that we used we're going to work with the response time variable. Last week we calculated the mean, median, and standard deviation of that response time variable. So as a refresher, we'll do that again. You see Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and go over to Explore. Move the response time variable that we're interested, over to the dependent list. Click the Statistics tab to make sure that Descriptive is checked. It is, so we will click Continue, and then OK. The output window should pop up, and we'll see that for the response time variable that we ran descriptive statistics on, we have an N of 60,386. So this data set contains over 60,000 emergencies. The average response time, or mean response time, was 359.61 seconds. The median response time, 332 seconds. And the standard deviation, 153.252 seconds. Now, what if we wanted to compare the average response times for the units that had been trained and compare them to the average response times for the units that had not been trained. We cannot do that with the current output because this is using the entire data set, all aggregate information from the response time variable, all cases, all 60,386. If we wanted to disaggregate the response time variable to determine if the average response times are different for units that are trained versus untrained, the steps are similar. You just add one small step to it. So again, you're going to go to Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Explore. Okay. By default, SPSS keeps the last variable in the dependent list, response time. We're still working with that variable, so we'll leave that there. But say we want to disaggregate it by whether or not the units responding have been trained or not. So essentially, we're trying to see if this training module worked. Did it decrease response times? So go to the training completed variable and move it to the factor list. And then click OK. You will get new output. You will see that the response time variable in the new output disaggregates the data by whether or not the training was completed or not. So whether or not the training completed variable is 0 or 1. 0 being not completed, 1 being the training had been completed. So out of our 60+ thousand total emergencies in our data set, 30,754 emergencies involved units responding that had not undergone the training. They had a training completed code of 0. And 29,632 emergencies or observations where the unit responding had a 1 for training completed, which means that the unit responding had already undergone the training. They had completed it. Now, to look at the differences in the means or the average response times for trained versus untrained units, go down to the next box on descriptives. You do need your codebook to make sure you understand the coding. So training completed, coded 0, we know that means that the units had not undergone training. The average response time for the 30,754 observations, so using all 30,754 observations where the unit had not been trained, the average response time was 366.03 seconds. 338 seconds is the median, with 152.366 as the standard deviation. So for untrained units, you can expect the average response time to be the mean, 366 seconds. For trained units, for the 29,632 observations or emergencies where the units responding had been trained, the average response time, was 352.95 seconds. Their training completed variable is a 1, meaning yes, they had undergone the training. And for those observations, the average response time or mean response time was 352.95 seconds with a median of 326 seconds and a standard deviation of 153.887. So comparing the trained versus untrained units responding to emergencies, we see that training, the average response time for trained units is 352.95 seconds. Units that were untrained, their response time was about 13 and a half, 14 seconds longer at 366.03 seconds. To determine if training really had a statistically significant effect, you'll have to watch the next video where we're going to run a t-test. But this is how to do basic statistics by disaggregating a variable that you're interested in, like response time, over different groups. For this case, we looked at trained versus untrained groups. Additionally, if you wanted to look at the response times for units where a chief was at the station compared to when chiefs were not at a station, you do that too. You analyze descriptive statistics and explore. We're still interested in the response time. Let's move the training completed out of the factor list and move chief station over to the factor list. Remember from your code book that a chief station variable coded 0 means that a battalion chief is not located at the station. A 1 under that variable means that a battalion chief is at the station. So let's look at the average response times for when a supervisor is present compared to when a supervisor is not present. We see that there are 46,684 emergency responses when the chief station variable is 0. So 46,684 responses where a battalion chief is not located at the station, and 13,702 observations or emergencies where a chief is at the station. That's coded 1. The average response time, or mean response time, for when the chief station variable is 0 is 364.58 seconds. Is that different than when a chief is present? I'll scroll down to when chief station equals 1, and the mean or average response time is 342.68 seconds. So about 22-second difference. When a chief is there, it appears that the average response time is lower. Whether this difference is statistically significant, we'll need to run a t-test, and we'll do that in the next video.